Hi everyone, and welcome to another instruction video with Make Your Own. In this video we will make this lovely poof. It has a lot of nice details on the top, around the middle section, and it's easy to open and close in the bottom. So for this project I worked with the 5mm braided rope, and you can of course use the 4mm or the Echo Nano tube yarn. It works just as well. I used the 8mm crochet needle. If you have 7, 9, 10 at home, use those. It works just as well. So let's dive right in and start making this poof. Okay, so let's get started. And we're gonna start with making a magic loop. I'll show you how I do it my way. So I place the yarn alongside my fingers like this, and I hold it tight with my thumb. Then I twist the yarn once around my fingers, and I turn my hand over, and I cross the yarn. And you can use your hands or your needle. I use my fingers because I think it's the easiest way. So you thread the top yarn underneath, so you get a loop, and I twist the loop. I put my fingers through the loop, and I grab the yarn and make a knot. Okay, and you just tighten it. And from this step, we will make 6 single crochets around the loop, and that is our first row. Okay, so we dive down with the needle inside the ring. We hook the yarn, so you have 2 loops around your needle. And we hook the yarn again and pull through both loops. That is your first single crochet. So another one, we dive down, we hook the yarn and pull it up. We hook the yarn again and pull through both loops. We continue with the third one. And number 3. Make sure you use both of the strings when you crochet your single crochets around the loop, because we're going to tighten it with this one when we're done. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. We'll make a 4th. So you hook the yarn and pull through. And 5. And the final number 6. Okay. So remember, we're gonna tighten it with this string right here, so you get a nice tight circle. And we end every row with the slip stitch. So from this stage, we dive down with the needle in the first stitch. We grab the yarn, make sure it's the longer piece, and we pull it through, and then we pull through both loops at the same time. Okay, so now you're done with your first row. And from this stage, we will continue with the second row. Let's continue with the second step, and that means we're gonna make an increase. So we're gonna make 2 stitches in every stitch around the loop, so you get a total of 12 at the end. So, and we're gonna work with half double crochets. Let me show you how we do that. So first we start with chaining 2, 1, 2. And then we twist the yarn around the needle, and you dive down in the first stitch. You hook the yarn and pull it up. So you have 3 loops on your needle. Then you hook the yarn again and you pull through all 3 loops. And that is a half double crochet. So we make another one in the same stitch. So twist the yarn around the needle, dive down in the same stitch, hook the yarn and pull it up. So you have 3 loops, twist the yarn and pull through all 3 loops. All right, let me just grab more yarn. So for the next stitch, we do the same thing. You twist the yarn around the needle, you dive down, hook it and pull it up. Then you twist it again, hook it and pull through. Okay, so we make the second one in the same loop, like this. and you just repeat the process all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how we finish. So I'm making my 11th stitch, and I'm going to finish with my last stitch in this loop right here. So you remember we made a chain at first, and this loop count as the first and last one. So I will make my final 12th stitch right here. All right, and then we end the row with a slip stitch. So the chain right here, the third one from the bottom, if you can see it, this one, that is the start. So I put my needle through it and I pull the yarn through both loops at once, and that is a slip stitch. So it should look something like this. You can always tighten the ring with the string, and I will meet you at step number 3. All right, let's continue with the third step. So we will make an increase like we did with the previous row. So you will make 2 stitches in every stitch, so you get a total of 24. And we will work with double crochets this time. Okay, so we start with chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. Remember, this count as your first stitch. So in the next stitch right here, we will make double crochets. So we twist the yarn around the needle, you dive down in the loop, you hook the yarn and pull it up. So you have a total of 3 loops around your needle. Hook the yarn again, and you pull through the first 2 loops. Hook the yarn again and pull through the last 2 loops. And we'll make another stitch in the same loop right here. Okay, so you twist the yarn around the needle, you dive down, hook the yarn, and pull it up. So you have 3. Hook the yarn again, pull through the first 2 loops. Second time, the last 2 loops. Okay. We continue with the next one. So you twist the yarn, dive down in the next stitch, pull the yarn up, twist the yarn again, and pull through the first 2 loops. Second time, twist the yarn, pull through the next 2 loops. So you will continue making your double crochets all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how we end it. (22), 23, and we will make the final stitch right here in the same loop as the first chain we made. So number 24. Always double count so you know you have the right amount of stitches. And we will end this row with a slip stitch only in the back loop right here. So we prep for the next step. So we dive down, we only use half of the loop. We pull the yarn through both loops at the same time. For the next step, we will chain only in the back loop for effect. Now we'll meet you there. So now we're at step 4, and for this row, we will make an increase in every other loop. So 2 stitches in every other loop. So you get a total of 36 at the end. And we will work double crochets like we did before, but only in the back loop. So you get a nice, fun detail around the circle. Okay, so we start with chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. And remember, we twist the yarn around our needle. We dive down only in the back loop, like this. Hook the yarn and pull it up. Twist the yarn again, pull through the first 2 loops and the next 2 loops. So we're gonna make an increase in every other stitch. So I start with making 2 increases in this one. So another one, we dive down, hook the yarn and pull it up. Hook the yarn again, pull through the first 2 loops. and the last 2 loops. So now we have 3 stitches. So we made 2, that's an increase, and the next one we're only going to make 1, and the next one we make 2. So only 1 stitch in this one, and the next one we make 2, and continue with this process all the way around to the end of the row, and I will meet you there. $33, $34, and we end with 2 stitches in the same stitch. So 35 and 36. Okay, I recommend you always double count your stitches before you end your row. And we finish the row with the slip stitch in this, the 3rd loop on the 1st chain. So in this stitch right here. So we dive down with the needle, pull through the yarn, and you pull it through both loops. So we end the row right here. You can place a marker right here if you want, so you know where the row starts and ends. All right, let's continue with the next step. Step 5, and for this row we will make an increase in every 3rd stitch. So you make 1, 1, and 2, and we will use single crochets for this row, and we start with chaining 2. 1, 2, and in the next stitch I will make 1 single crochet. So we dive down, hook the yarn, pull it up, so you have 2 loops around your needle, twist the yarn, and pull through both loops. So we have 1, 2 stitches. So in the next one we make 2. 1 single crochet and 2 in the same stitch. In the next one we make 1 and 1, and in the 3rd we make 2. So remember, we use this pattern all the way around, so you get a total of 48 stitches, and I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how we finish. $46, $47, and $48. So remember, always double count so you have the right amount of stitches on your row. And for this row, we end our slip stitch only in the back loop. So we prep for the next step. Okay, so remember, we only use the back loop. We hook the yarn and pull through both loops. So that is your slip stitch in the back loop. And that's how we end our row 5. Let's meet up at row 6. Step 6. And for this row, we will make an increase in every 4th loop. Okay, so we chain 1, 1, 1, and then you make 2 in the 4th stitch. So for this row, we will work with single crochets again, but only in the back loop. Okay, so at the end, you should have a total of 60 stitches. Let's start with chaining 2. 1, 2. and we make a single crochet only in the back loop. So we have 2 stitches, then we make a third one, and in the 4th stitch we make 2. So 1 and 2, and we repeat. So 1 stitch, 2, 3, and then you make 2. 1 and 2. Just repeat this process all the way around your row, and I will meet you at the end and show you how we finish. Six, 57, 58, and we end with 2 stitches in the last one. So 1 and 2. That makes 60. So double count, so you have the right amount of stitches on your row, and we end with a slip stitch in the back loop as well for this row. Okay, that's the end of row 6. I will meet you at row 7. So we're at row 7, and for this row we will make no increase. We just make slip stitches all the way around in the back loop, and that is just for effect. So if you want, you can skip this step and just continue with step 8, but I think it adds a nice design to the top. So we just make slip stitches in every stitch. So we dive down and we make a loop, and we just hook it through the previous loop. So like this. So you dive down, hook the yarn, pull it up, and then you pull that loop through the previous one all the way around, so you get a nice design like this. So you see these rows here. So don't forget to place your marker where the row begins and ends, so you remember where you start. So just keep making slip stitches all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Nine and the final 60, and we end this row with a slip stitch as well, like this, and you should have a total of 60. You can always double count, and we will continue with the 8th step. Okay, so we're at the 8th and final row for the top part of the poof. So for this row, we will make an increase in every 5th stitch. So we make 4 singles and then 2 in the 5th one. So you get a total of 72 stitches around the edge. And for this part, we will work with triple crochets, and I will show you how we do that. So we start with chaining 4, 2, 3, and 4. First stitch. Okay, so the triple crochet, you twist the yarn 2 times around your needle. We dive down in the stitch, hook the yarn, and pull it up. So you get a total of 4 loops around your needle. Hook the yarn again and pull through the first 2 loops. Hook the yarn, pull through the next 2 loops. Hook the yarn and pull through the final 2 loops. And that is a triple crochet. So we make another one. Hook the yarn twice. Dive down, hook it, pull it up. Hook it again, pull through the first 2 loops. Pull through the next 2 loops. and the last 2 loops. So we have 3 stitches. We make the 4th, and remember, every 5 stitch we make 2 stitches for the increase. So now we're at number 5. We make our first triple crochet, and the second one in the same stitch. All right, it should look something like this. So just continue this pattern all the way around until you have 72 stitches, and I will show you how we finish this row. See you there. So the last triple crochets on the row, and I will make my final one in the last stitch, and then we will end with a slip stitch only in the back loop to prep for the next one, like this. All right, I'll meet you at the next step. Step 9. So now this means we're gonna start with the middle section of the poof. So from now on, we only work with the same amount of stitches, so no increases. So if you stopped at row 8, you should have a total of 72 stitches. So for this row, we will work with double crochets only in the back loop. So start with chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, then we twist the yarn around the needle, and we work our double crochet only using the back loop. So only 1 double crochet in every stitch, no increases. So work your crochets all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row, show you how we finish and how we prep for the next step. So the final stitches. Okay, so the last one right here, and we end with a slip stitch in both loops this time. Okay, so right here, and pull it through both loops. All right, I'll see you at the next step. We're at step number 10, and that means basically repeating step number 9. We're going to work with our double crochets once more, but this time we're only going to work in the entire loop, so not the back loop. So we start with chaining 3, so 1, 2, 3, and we twist the yarn around the needle, dive down in the entire stitch, hook the yarn and pull it up so you get your 3 loops, hook the yarn again and pull through the first 2 loops, and 1 more through the last 2 loops. So twist the yarn, we dive down, hook it, pull it up, hook the yarn again, pull through the first 2 loops, hook the yarn, pull through the last 2 loops. So we work our double crochets all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of row 10 and show you how we finish. So we're at the end of the 10th row, and we will end with the slip stitch only in the back loop. So we prep for the next step. So remember, only in the back loop, slip stitch like this, okay? And let's move on to step number 11. Okay, so we're at step number 11. As you can see, if I turn it over, it's starting to work itself upwards. It should look something like this. Great, so I'm turning it over again so you have the front side up. Okay, so step number 11, we're gonna work half double crochets in the back loop. So we start with chaining 2, and then we twist the yarn around the needle and we dive down using only the back loop in the next stitch. Hook the yarn and pull it up so you have 3 loops around your needle. Then we hook the yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Sorry, at once. Okay, one more time. We twist the yarn around the needle. We use only the back loop. Hook the yarn and pull it up. Twist the yarn again and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so work your half double crochets, 1 in each stitch, all the way around. So I will meet you at the end of the row and I will show you how we end and prep for the next one. All right, the final 2 stitches of row number 10. And we're gonna end with the slip stitch in the back loop as well. So we're prepping for the next row, like this. Okay, so that is end of row number 11. I will meet you at. So we're at row number 12 and we will work with double crochets in the back loop for this row. So we start with chaining 3. Then we twist the yarn once around the needle and dive down in the next stitch. Hook the yarn and pull it up. Hook the yarn and pull through the first 2 loops. One more time, hook the yarn and pull through the last 2 loops. Okay. Grab a bit more yarn. We're almost running out of our first ball of yarn. So twist the yarn, dive down in the next stitch, hook the yarn again and pull through the next 2 loops. Okay, so you work your double crochets in the back loop all the way around. And once again, I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how to end and prep for the next one. Okay, so the final stitches of row 12. And we will end this row with a slip stitch in the back loop as well. So we prep for row 13. Okay, so slip stitch in the back loop like this. Okay. So that is end of row 12. Let's continue with row 13. We are at row 13 and we're going to work with half double crochets this time in the back loop. So we start with chaining 2, 1, 2, and then you twist the yarn around the needle and you dive down using only the back loop. You hook the yarn and pull it up. So you have 3 loops on your needle. Then you hook the yarn and pull through all 3 loops at once, like this. And once more. So you twist the yarn around the needle, you dive down using only the back loop, hook the yarn and pull it up. So you have your 3 loops around your needle, to hook the yarn again and pull through all 3 loops. and you work your half double crochets all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Show you how I finish and prep for the next one. So final stitches of the row, and this row we will end with a slip stitch in the back loop. Okay, so the one right here. So slip stitch only in the back loop. All right, and I will meet you at the next step. So we're at step 14, but first let me show you. This is what it should look like so far. It's growing. It's about this tall at this stage. We have 2 more rows to go before we are done with the middle section. So, okay, so for row 14, we will work with double crochets in the back loop. So we start with chaining 3. Let me get some more yarn. Okay, so the double crochet, remember, we twist the yarn, we dive down in the next stitch, we hook the yarn and pull it up, so you get your 3 loops. We hook the yarn again and pull through the first 2 loops and the last 2 loops. And again, twist the yarn around the needle, dive down only in the back loop. We hook the yarn and pull it through the first 2 loops, hook the yarn and pull it through the next 2 loops. Okay, so we work our double crochets all around in the back loop. And we are almost at the finish line with the middle section of the poof. Okay, so I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how we finish and prep for the next step. So these are the final stitches of the row. Okay, so the last double crochet right here. We will end with a slip stitch in both loops this time. So use the entire stitch like this. Keep it nice and tight. All right, so that's the end of row 14, and I will meet you at the next step. So for the 15th row, we will work with double crochets, and that is the last row of the middle section of the poof. So again, we start with chaining 3 like this. Let me get some more yarn. And then we twist the yarn, dive down in the next stitch. We use the entire stitch this time, not just the back loop. And we work our double crochets all the way around row 15. And of course, you can continue if you want your poof to be taller, but I think this is a nice height. I will show you when we are at the end of the row just how tall it is. So work your double crochets all around, and I will meet you at the end. So we're at the final stitches of row 15. Okay, so last stitch. So let me show you the height of the poof. I will just finish with a slip stitch in the back loop. So we prep for the next step. So slip stitch, back loop. All right, so this is the height of the poof. If you can see clearly, maybe this way. So it's about 25 centimeters If you want to make it taller, just continue with 1, 2, 3 more rows, depending on how tall you want it. Okay, so for the next step, we will make the bottom section of the poof, and I will meet you there. Okay, so we're at step 16. That means starting the bottom part of the poof. So for the first row, we will make double crochets only in the back loop, so we get the same detail as the top. And then I will show you how we make our decreases for the bottom. So we start with chaining 3, and then we work our double crochets, 1 in every stitch, all the way around. So no decreases yet, just 1 double crochet in every stitch. So twist the yarn, we dive down, hook the yarn and pull it up. And we work the first 2 loops, then the next 2 loops. So work your double crochets, 1 in every stitch, all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of row 16 and show you how we prep for the next row. So the final stitches of row 16, and we will end with a slip stitch in the entire loop this time. So not just the back loop, but we use the whole loop. Okay, let me get some more yarn. Okay, so final stitch, we end the loop right here. Or sorry, we end the row right here with a slip stitch like this. Okay, so let's meet up at the next step. At step 17, and that means starting our decrease. So for this row, we're gonna skip every 4th stitch. We will work with double crochets, but in a bit different ways. I will show you how we do this. So start with chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. That count as your first stitch. So in the next loop, we make a double crochet. And in the third one, we're gonna work underneath, right here, underneath the stitch. So start with twisting the yarn around the needle, and then we dive down underneath the stitch. You hook the yarn and pull it up. And then you work your double crochet around it, like this. Okay, and then the 4th stitch right here, we skip that one. Okay, so every 4th stitch we skip. And then we repeat 2 double crochets in the loop, like this. And then the third one, we work underneath. So 1, 2, and then the third one underneath right here. Okay. And then the next stitch, the 4th, we skip that one. Okay. So again, we repeat 2 double crochets in the loop, and then the third one underneath. So 1, 2, and then we skip, sorry, we dive down underneath like this, and then you skip the next one, the 4th stitch. So you repeat this process all the way around, and I will meet you at the end of the row. These are the final stitches of the row, and I end with the final stitch underneath. So you should have about 54 stitches, and we end with the slip stitch like this. This is what it looks like. So this is only because we prep for the ending of the poof, so it's easy to open and close. And I will meet you at the next step. we're at step 18, and that means we're going to continue our decrease. So we work the same type of decrease we did before, but for this row we skip every third stitch. So we start with chaining 3, and we're going to work our double crochets. So we make 1 double crochet in the loop, and then we dive down underneath the same stitch as the previous row. So that's the important part to remember. We want those to end up at the same place. So we make the double crochet underneath, and then the stitch after this one, we skip that one. Okay, so we skip the one and we continue in the next one. So we make 1 double crochet in the loop, and then we make the double crochet underneath the same stitch right here. And then we skip the next stitch. Okay, so we skip that one. Then we continue with the next one. So we make a double crochet in the stitch. And then the next one we go underneath. So it's not really important to count the stitches, even if it's good, but the most important thing is to remember that we get these underneath stitches together, so they look like a row that's popping up. Okay, so again, we skip the stitch after this one, and we make 1 double crochet in the loop, and then the next one we dive down, and then we skip the next stitch. Then we use this one, so we make 1, and then we dive down underneath. All right, so just repeat this process all the way to the end of the row, and I will meet you there. So the final stitches of the row, so I make 1 in the loop, and then I end with 1 underneath. And we finish the row with a slip stitch. Like this. All right, so now you should have your popping rows, or whatever we should call them, on top of each other. And we are so close to the final step. We are at the final step, so step 19. And for this row, we will only make our decreases with the underneath stitches. So we start with chaining 3 to start with, and then we only make our double crochets underneath. So no stitches in between. Like this. And this is for the final row. So we can easily open and close. So I will show you in a bit how small the hole should be, or it will look like. Okay, so just keep doing your underneath double crochets. Not sure if that's what they're called, but that's what I'm calling them. And I will meet you at the end of the row and show you how we finish, so you can start using your poof. So almost done with the final stitches of the poof. So just make last stitch underneath, and we end the row with the slip stitch. Final stitch, everyone. We are done with the poof. Great job. Okay, so put your crochet needle down, grab a scissor and cut off the string about, I don't know, 30 centimeters. I'm gonna cut mine right here. Sorry, outside the picture. Okay, so now I just make a knot like this. That's how I end the row. And we're gonna weave this piece of string under and over these stitches we just made. So we have natural holes right here. So just under and over. And this is how we open and close the poof. So for the filling, I would recommend you think storage or reuse. So I used maybe a blanket I'm not going to use for the fall, or store some clothes I'm not going to use for a while. And just use whatever you have at home. Okay, so this is what it should look like. You have your hole right here. And when you stuff it, just pull the string like this, so you get a nice tight closing, and just hide the string inside. All right, and I will show you in the next step what it looks like when it's full. See you there. Here we have it, the finished poof. So I made one in rusty yellow and one in beige, both with the braided yarn and 5mm. I just want to thank you for following me and make your own in this instruction video, and I hope to see you in the next one.